Welcome back to the Dividend Diplomats YouTube channel. You know you're rolling with Bert and Lanny, the Dividend Diplomats guys, and we've got a fun little topic here. We're talking about dividend yield and dividend growth, the combination and why you want to look at both factors when buying dividend stocks.
It's going to be a great video, everybody. We're pumped up to help kind of give a little more detail about what we're looking at when we're looking at dividend growth and dividend history and dividend yield all together. But you know what? Before we do, kindly subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Everybody, we're on our journey here to do as many subscribers as we possibly can on YouTube to help spread the word of dividend investing. But wait a second, Landy, we have some small housekeeping here before we jump into the content, don't we?
What are we trying to do here, B?
Well, last week we announced that if our video had 400 likes and you subscribe to our channel and you left a comment, we'd pick a winner. Took a few days, but we got to 400 likes, everybody. So we're going to reveal our big winner from last week's contest. Drum roll, please. Our friend, Billy Johnson. Billy, you know us. We see you all the time on our channel. We'll reach out to you when you comment here. We'll message you on the side to figure out how we can ship you your Dividend Diplomat swag. So everybody, exciting. Congrats, Billy. We're excited. Now let's get to the feature for today's video.
All right, guys. You know, we've been investing. I know Bert and I both for over 10 plus years. You know, Bert, I'm pretty sure you're on 10 plus now, 11 plus. I'm on 12 or 13 plus years. And, you know, it's exciting. Dividend investing is great. It's great for your financial freedom journey. You create passive income by owning stocks that pay you a dividend, whether that's monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. But, you know, there's a lot of factors that, you know, we focus in on. Obviously, you know, the stock screener metrics we look at. A big one is the dividend growth rate. And I know that could be a lot of yield chasers out there, as well as a lot of stocks that you may own or you may buy that have low dividend yields as well. So you really want to look at dividend growth and dividend yield in combination here. So Bert, you know, what's like a good example of, you know, a dividend yield and a dividend growth that's like a bad combo, and one that's like a solid combo?
Yeah, so I think that's right. We have our general rule of thumb. If you have a low dividend yield, a high dividend growth is what we like to see. If you have a higher dividend yield, you can typically expect lower dividend growth. So here's an example. If a stock has a 2% yield, 2% dividend yield, we put that in the low dividend yield bucket. We would expect to see a high single digit dividend growth rate. We always look to see 10% total for dividend yield plus dividend growth combined. So we would expect a 2% yield with, say, like an 8 to 10% dividend growth rate. Conversely, we would if it's a higher yielding, we'd say like a 5%, we'd probably expect a 4% dividend growth rate. So higher yield, lower dividend growth. So what does this mean? You asked what would be those are the good combinations, the bad combinations, a 2% yield and a 2% dividend growth rate, or a 5% yield and a 1% dividend growth rate. So remember, low yield, high dividend growth rate, high yield, slightly lower dividend growth rate, but we always shoot for that 10% threshold when combining the two.
Yeah, you always want to keep your eyes on it. You know, people I know like Verizon stock yields like 6.5%, and you wouldn't expect a 6.5+% dividend growth rate. That's why they usually grow their dividend by, you know, about 2%. So you're already over that 8+% with the yield plus growth. Another great player is Bert's favorite, Johnson & Johnson, the dividend king for over 60 years. You know, they have a modest dividend yield at about 2.68%, but historically they grow between 6 or 7% per year on the dividend. So the combination factor right there is usually around that 9% benchmark for Johnson & Johnson. So again, very solid. Because the combination of both, when you're in the accumulation phase, usually you have dividend reinvestment turned on your investing account. Now, guys, let us know in the comments, do you drip or do you not drip, aka dividend reinvestment? We would love to know if you guys pool your cash and then buy a stock. Are you guys okay with setting it and forgetting it? So dividend reinvestment, though, for those that don't know, it's when your dividend gets paid and it automatically buys the shares at that current price on the payment date. So you're accumulating more shares when the dividend gets paid, aka more shares equals more income. And then when the dividend is growing, when the Johnson & Johnson announces a 6% increase, that dividend, let's say, for example, it's $1, goes from $1 to $1.06. Now you have not just the same amount of shares that you bought on your initial purchase, but now you have more shares because of the reinvestment. And now you have dividend growth. So your income is growing exponentially.
And that's the beauty of it. And that's why both of them make such a difference. You can't just have yield with no growth, and the growth is important. And also just taking a step back too, in an inflationary time, making sure your income stream is growing is also critical as well. Because as you see with inflation, inflation at record highs, you need to make sure that income stream is growing to offset the increase in costs that you're having, or else you're going to lose some purchasing power. So that 6% yield might not be 6% if you're not at least growing it in some capacity, because it's technically losing purchasing power. Same thing for the 2% yield and everything lower. So dividend growth is key. You can't just look at yield and stagnant. And that is why we stress so much when we run to our screener. Dividend growth is before the dividend yield, because you need to make sure the dividend is growing.
Yeah, so definitely a little bit more of a technical video today. Yeah, so Bert says you want to get Hulkified. You want Hulk Hogan to be getting hit, but to be getting better and stronger as the match goes on, as your dividend goes on. We have two really good examples too. Again, we like to look at a combination of 8% plus as a minimum, with the dividend yield plus the dividend growth rate. So we have two really good ones that are priced pretty well right now.
Yeah.
And we'll use two really good examples to show, kind of what happens to the passive income that you get when you buy these, colossal dividend stocks. Because, as Bert knows, the combination of dividend growth and dividend reinvestment is magical and it's powerful. And then it brings into a third factor called the yield on cost. Bert, you want to explain kind of what the yield on cost means?
Nope, I'm kidding. Of course, everybody, I'm going to. But first, I gotta say, yeah, earlier in the video, I said 10% for our factor. 8 to 9% is very good too. 10% is like the aggressive. Like if you see 10%, we're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. But we're very happy with 8 to 9. So I want to go back and clarify that quickly. So yield on cost. So, okay, what is the yield on cost? So a current dividend yield is the dividend divided by the share price. That tells you the current yield at the moment. But the difference between yield on cost is you take your dividend and you divide it by the cost you paid for a share. So if you have a $3 annual dividend and the current cost per share is $100 is the current share price, it's a 3% dividend yield. So let's say though, you bought that company at 90. So your cost is $90 per share for that cost basis. Your yield on cost is actually 3.3%. So that's the difference between the two. Yield on cost measures the current dividend against the historical price that you paid. Current and dividend yield measures it against the current share price.
Right. And, as the dividend grows, again, we'll use $100 as an example with a 3% or a $3 dividend, 3%. And that $3 dividend goes up to $3, and 30 cents. Your yield on cost now, instead of being 3%, is 3.3%. So your yield on your initial cost basis is going up. So when you have dividend growth and dividend, reinvestment happening, your yield on cost continues to sprout year after year. So two stocks we do want to talk about, we'll bring up like Johnson & Johnson and UPS as great examples. Why? Because they currently both have dividend growth rates well over 6% on average the last 5 years. UPS is actually yielding right now a 3.41% yield, which is above average, above the stock market. J&J's dividend yield is 2.68%. So guys, this is where it's at. Keeping all things consistent, keeping all, even though reinvestment occurs every quarter, we'll just pretend like it only occurs once a year, and the share price stays the same. Your yield plus your dividend growth rate for UPS is about 9.8%, and Johnson & Johnson's about 8.7% right now, based on the 5-year growth rate on average. So Bert, in 5 years, as we'll show in the chart, what happens to that passive income stream? Again, the initial yields are about 3.4% on UPS and about 2.68% on J&J. What happens to the yield on cost after the combination of dividend growth and dividend reinvestment after 5 years.
It grows, baby, and that's the beauty of how this works. So you can see here in the chart, year zero starts at for UPS on $1,000 at 34.13. Year two, build in that factor, increases $3.30 and change. That brings it up to 37. Compounding starts to take effect. Year two, 41.17. Year three, 45.21. I'm reading this chart and it's growing. That's what we want to see here. Year four, 49.65, and year five is 54.53. And I think the key is we'll get the steps in between each one of them. Doesn't stay stagnant at that first $3.30. What is it, 36 cents in year one? It's growing because of that dividend growth, because of the reinvestment. That's what it's all about. And then at the end, when you measure it at the end of year five, that gives you that YOC, that yield on cost of 5.45%. That's the beauty of this.
J&J, very similar. Again, if you invested $1,000 right now, you'd have about $26.79, in forward passive income. Then after 5 years, you'd be at about $40.67. So your yield on cost grows, at that, 8.7% clip with a yield on cost of about 4.07%. So, in summary here, guys, just want to really hit this on the head for all the soon to be current investors, beginning investors, and those looking to invest here in 2023. Dividend growth investing can be very powerful to build your passive income stream, but it takes patience. I know it takes a lot of time, right, Bert?
It does. And hopefully like what you're seeing here and especially what you see with this chart at the end is it's the importance of just getting everything you can and just getting started. We'll get the difference between what you're getting on each investment at year zero versus year five. Seeing those YOCs jump to over 5% for UPS and over 4% to J&J should hopefully encourage you to get going with it and get that snowball rolling. You don't get to year five without starting at year zero. So we can't emphasize that enough. You got to put in the hard work to start the process so that you can benefit from the fruits of the labor later on.
So the question is what's your benchmark, everybody, with the combination of dividend yield and dividend growth? Do you use something similar, 8% plus, 10% plus, or do you not even consider it? We want to know in the feedback section below in the comments. If you guys, again, drip, give this video a nice thumbs up as well. We want to see those likes go up here.
Yeah. And let us know too, if you want any more of these types of videos too, we're happy to produce them. It's fun to talk about this and kind of get into a more detailed dive into what we're doing. We have our screener, but these are always fun ones for us to record as well.
Guys, terrible hair day, by the way, for me. So let's not talk about that.
I don't think anybody noticed, Lanny. It looks the same every day.
Well, guys, again, please subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Ride with the diplomats on the way to financial freedom. Let's all get after it this year in 2023. Bert, any other parting words, my man?
If you're not with us, you're against us, baby.
Oh, man, that was Bert and Lanny from the Dividend Diplomats. Over and out.